Over to this now. One person has been injured and several taxis have been set alight in central Johannesburg. We understand it's related to conflict between two taxi associations. Police are on the scene to control the situation. Our reporter Silindelo Masikane is in downtown Johannesburg and she joins us now live. Slee, we understand that the Metro Police were on the scene trying to take the damaged taxis away from the scene. What can you tell us now with regards to the situation? Is it still volatile?
Not at this stage. We know that, of course, the violence or the torching of the minibus taxis began in the early hours of this morning. From speaking to some of the eyewitnesses, they described rather quite a horrific scene in terms of what transpired here in the Johannesburg CBD on Commissioner Street, just opposite the Carlton Centre. And at this point, the roads have been reopened. As you can see behind me, traffic is once more flowing. There is, however, one torched minibus taxi that needs to be removed. The others that were torched have already been removed. Police do remain on the scene for now until that final taxi is removed. But we know that this issue actually began last night when the taxi drivers from two associations, mainly WATA and WATA, as well as the Mansfield Association, the taxi drivers apparently got into what was described in the statement from the provincial transport department as skirmishes. So at this point, the scene itself is no longer active. Forensics were here a little earlier on gathering. But at this point, the situation is somewhat relatively back to normal.
Okay, great, Slee. We also understand that the MEC for Transport, Jacob Mamabolo, has indicated that he will be meeting with the taxi association, the taxi associations involved. Earlier on, you mentioned that we have not seen such violence, especially with taxis, in a very long time. And it seems as though now the roads have opened up and commuters are feeling, I would say, safe to continue with their business, given what we saw earlier on.
Well, I think for now the situation is rather fluid. So I think until there's that meeting between the two associations and the MEC takes place tomorrow morning, the question remains whether this is just the beginning of what we can see unfolding over the next couple of days, the next couple of weeks, because we know just how violent these disputes can get. I mean, thankfully in this particular incident here, we know that there's a similar scene in Soweto as well. But here in the Johannesburg CBD, we understand that thankfully there were no fatalities, but there was unfortunately one injury. One of the taxi drivers involved was injured, and also there were no passengers when these vehicles were torched as well as damaged. But the question remains whether this can be resolved before there are any lives lost and whether there is any more damage to property. But at this point, the police have not arrested anyone, but a case of malicious damage to property is being investigated.
Great. Thanks so much for that update, Silindelo Masikane, out in the city of Johannesburg. And of course, we know that the MEC is trying to deal with the situation and meet with all those that have been involved.